Now that's more like it. The Chicago Bears get their first victory of the season, the first win for Ben Johnson as head coach of the Chicago Bears as they take care of business in the lakefront, beating the Dallas Cowboys 31-14. We're here to break it all down here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day right here on WCPT 820 AM Heartland Signal and WSBC 1240 AM Chicago right here on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. And what an afternoon. What a late afternoon in the second window for the Chicago Bears. And it's an interesting wave of emotion that the NFL takes you in. It's something we talk about every single week. It's something we've talked about season on season on season, is the roller coaster that you go through, because it is so much importance in one game every single week. Every single game you play on a Thursday, on a Sunday, on a Monday, the random Saturdays matter because you only have so many of them. And your performances matter because are you wasting opportunities? And we finally, in the third game of the season, where things were getting a little antsy, we got to see the Chicago Bears respond. And we got to see them answer a few questions. And as you know, I always have my notes. We don't do the stats things as often here. I mean, we saw the stat line. Caleb Williams has, the 4 touchdowns on 298 yards, 19 of 28. DeAndre Swift, 13 carries, 33 yards. But you had Luther Burden with 101 yards on 3 receptions for a touchdown. Roman Dunze for a touchdown on 62 yards. DeAndre Swift caught the ball 3 times, 45 yards. I mean, we could talk about the amazing performance by the defense. But we know context matters. We know more than anything, the final score is what it is. We were watching all the same game. You felt it throughout the game. The Bears were never going to give this one up. But what is the difference between what we saw on opening Monday Night Football between the Vikings and Bears and week 3 in the late afternoon games with Tom Brady giving us all his Tom Brady-isms? What was the difference? Why did the Chicago Bears finish the way they did? Why did they have so much dominance in this game? So there's a few things. First, what a great bounce back for Ben Johnson and this Chicago Bears team in general after all the hoopla on press conferences and interviews that we were hearing from the head coach. We heard him call out his team, talk about not practicing like champions. And my question was to him, why are you now talking about practice after week 2 of the regular season starting? These games matter. These games count. What were you doing all summer? What had you been doing the entire training camp? What was going on? Those were my questions. I presume they were your questions as well when you heard something like that. But they responded. Caleb looked good. Say what you will, and I understand a lot of the complaints, and I understand sometimes it feels like I am caping for Caleb. But at least for me, I have seen something in Caleb Williams that makes me think he is different. Is he a unicorn like a Josh Allen? Like Jalen Hurts? Like Lamar Jackson? Is he one of these dudes when Joe Burrow is healthy? I don't know if he is or not. Chances are he's not. But I do think he's in those tiers of really good quarterbacks that can make your team really good, that can put Band-Aids on deficiencies because he's so good. He's so efficient at what he does. And from hitting open receivers, like he had that big play to DJ Moore. He spotted him right in the end zone, hit him. Same thing with, and we'll get into it more and more, but we saw him hit open receivers much more at a higher rate in this game than we did last few weeks. And we have to put the caveat, obviously, it's something that I mentioned on the Bear Era podcast, which I do with EJ Snyder and Kieran Hall, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network, sponsored by Hamid, shout out to them, that this is a Dallas defense that could be got, that we've seen make teams look good. And the Bears took advantage of that. The Bears took advantage of a lot of different things in the game, and we'll get into that in a little bit. The plays look different in this game. The creativity that we were looking for, that we were promised from Ben Johnson, that we've seen Ben Johnson employ with the Detroit Lions finally came to fruition in this game. And there's no bigger spotlight, there's no bigger indicator than that flea flicker, which, by the way, DeAndre Swift just hung it up there. We all saw it. We all felt it. It felt like an eternity. But Caleb gets it, gets the ball the way he needs to, throws a mile-high ball, and Burden comes down with it, does the rest of the job, 6 points on the board. Huge play. You talk about defining and putting yourselves in certain positions of what your team can be. What is your identity? It's something that I ask for. What do you do well? Is this what you do well? Is this something you can do well as the season continues, as you get more comfortable with the offense? Ben Johnson gets more comfortable being the head coach of the team, trusting his team, the team trusting him. Those are things that can be on the horizon. And if you're good at that, the possibilities are endless on how far the potential can be for this team. Now, I do want to also give credit for something that I still think is a glaring problem with this team, and it's the running back position. All these points, all the great vibes. DeAndre Swift had big plays in the passing game. DeAndre Swift that made some big blocks, but more than anything, they couldn't really do any damage on the ground against, again, a very vulnerable Dallas Cowboys defense. Now, the Cowboys were able to run on the Bears for the most part, and shout out to Tyreek for having that big strip and recover over Javonte Williams, but that was off of a big play. But if you look at when it mattered the most, at least in this game, and this is, you got to give credit where credit's due. I have asked for performance to be better. I've asked for them to make an impact. In that third quarter, when the Bears get that possession, and they have a drive of 19 plays for 9.5 minutes, and they ran the ball, I think, like 11 straight times. That was a gutsy performance from the running back room. That was big-time football from the offensive line. That was putting your stamp on a game that you were not going to let this one slip away. And you put an exclamation point at the very end of it. That was big-time football. That was winning football. That was the difference in what happened on Monday night against the Minnesota Vikings and how you won a game against Dallas in the late afternoon, America's Game of the Week. That's how that happened, is being able to finish the job, to take advantage of what that team was giving you. And in that given moment, they were breaking. They weren't just bending anymore. You were breaking that defense, their front line. And speaking of taking advantage, you took advantage of CeeDee Lamb and his injury. It is a tough sport. It sucks when the best players don't play. But at that given moment, in this game, when you desperately needed a win, your first win of the season, at home, with all the murmurings and rumblings going around already in the stadium and the fan base and on the airwaves and on social media, he goes down. And you took advantage of it because Dak Prescott couldn't do anything down the field. Not until it didn't matter. You shut that down. You couldn't shut down the running game, but you made sure that they didn't have their best weapon. You were not going to let that be the reason you lost. You were not going to give them anybody else any type of momentum in that wide receiver tight end rooms that were going to beat you. Take advantage of now having more chances at receptions. You did not let that happen. You took advantage of their best player, arguably the best player on the field. You know, you'd say Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Caleb, and you know, obviously Rome and some of the Bears receivers are that, but like arguably the best player on the field is now out. You took advantage of it. Perfect. And that helped your secondary play better. And that's something that I've been asking. That was, you talk about the glaring weakness of the offensive side being the running back room. The secondary has been that for this Bears defense. They weren't getting any pressure up front. They were doing that in this game. But you had Tremaine Edmonds being able to get 2 interceptions. You had Byard being able to get an interception. Again, all these things in the red zone. And we talk about Stevenson having a great game after being a big sore spot in week 2. That's great. This defense showed up when they were supposed to. We've been asking them to do it. They got the ball. They turned it over. They didn't look gassed out. And they didn't let another team bully them around, which it kind of looked like was going to happen for a little while. But they settled the ship, and they were able to handle business. This is the response that you were looking for when it came to an opportunity being given to you. Now, we talked about it. The caveat being, is Dallas any good? And it brings me to, I think, my big thesis, my major theory about the entire NFL is the adage of, and the old saying, the cliche of any given Sunday. There is wisdom to it. But I think if you're looking for the analytical way, the cynical way, the sports betting way, the fantasy football way, the Madden way, however you want to break it down, it is a tier list. And it is fluid. And just like any opinion, I like to break down the NFL in quarters, right? First 4 games, next 4 games, so on and so forth. That's how I like to do it, especially during the 16-game era. But I kind of like to break it down in those kind of numbers. The rosters change so often. Injuries happen. The team is so different from what we've seen in September that we will see in late October, early November. So I do the tier. Who are the top teams? Where do you put them? We learned after this Bears game, beating the Cowboys 31-14 as we're breaking it down here on the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, here on WCPT 820 AM, Heartland Signal, and WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago, right here on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. The Bears are not a bottom-tier team. I couldn't definitely say that last week. I could not tell you that for sure this is a team that's not on the bottom 5, bottom 6. Now I can. Now I can tell you they're probably right down the middle. 7-10 right now is the ultimate number I see, the record I see at the very end, as again a fluid season happens. As anything crazy can happen, right? That number could flip the other way. But I don't think this is a team now that we could say is going to compete for the number 1 overall pick. We've seen how good it can be. Because we can say a lot of things, and we could project a lot of things, but we understand that on any given Sunday, with all the variables, with all the craziness that happens, that you may go against a really good defense and still put up 31 points. Because all it takes is one move to the left or one move to the right, one sprained ankle, one pulled hamstring, one big play, one big turnover, and the entire game plan changes. Are you capable of taking advantage of that? We weren't able to answer that the first 2 games of the season. We saw glimpses of it. But this is a Dallas team that we've also seen be able to hang around, be in certain games, win certain games. The Bears answered that question. What tier are they on? They are not a Super Bowl contender. They are not a NFC North winner. This is not a team that you're going to say is going to win 12 games. But it is a team that you know can beat the Bengals of the world that are on their schedule. And we'll talk about next week in just a second. But this is a team that at least doesn't feel they should be embarrassing you. That they should be boring you. That they don't have the potential to be interesting, to be good. Right now, as we're recording this, as everybody's talking about it, they will be on the number 1 A story, A project, number 1 in the order of your first takes. Dan Patrick's, Dan Lebertard's, Colin Cowherd, you name it, whatever your favorite, ESPN, Sports Center, all of it, NFL. Mina Kimes is going to talk about it, NFL Live. You're going to have Kay Adams. The Bears are going to be there because it's a big story of who they beat, the quality of opponent. What is the quality of opponent? You look around the landscape of the NFL, the Browns just beat the Packers. The Packers beat the Vikings. We saw the Vikings do to Chicago, what is Detroit going to do against Baltimore? Where does that put Baltimore if they win? Where does that put Detroit? It's so fluid. So if you're a Bears fan, at least in my opinion, as I see it, as a Bears fan myself, somebody who watches these games for not just the excitement of the game, which is the best way to watch it, but also the nuances. What are people talking about? What are the vibes? What are the reporters, the insiders talking about when they're not asking questions? What are the scouts looking at? Breaking it all down, if you're a Bears fan, you should feel that you can win a lot of games. There's nobody that legitimately outclasses you. There's a couple Super Bowl contenders that when you walk into that stadium, whether you're home or away, you're not only the underdog, you're expected to lose. And there's going to be a decent margin on the over-under and what the money line is. But for the most part, for the rest of the league, you're going to be in these games. Is what do you do in those moments? How do you take advantage of them? And that is why you used a number 1 draft pick on a quarterback. That's why you spent as much money as you did getting the hottest NFL coach free agent you could. It's because in those moments, when everything else has been thrown out there, every single play, every single defense, the disguise, the creativity, when it just comes down to, can this coach read the way this game is going, call the right play, and can his quarterback execute it with the rest of his guys? That is the ultimate. That is what it comes down to. That is why you brought these guys in. And that is how you win games. That is how you win a game 31-14 instead of choking it at the end like you did against Minnesota. That's the difference. And it's a whole lot more fun and entertaining to see it with this kind of outcome than it is the other way. But now, what is next for the Chicago Bears? That is a date with the Las Vegas Raiders. So, for a lot of Bears fans, a game in Las Vegas, the late afternoon time slot against a team that doesn't look too good. They're 1-2 themselves. You should expect to get right. Again, this is a team that's going to let you play the kind of game you want. It's the kind of game your defensive line can really stack up some of those pressures and sacks against Geno Smith. This is a chance for your secondary as they continue to get healthy, to get themselves comfortable, to get themselves in game shape. This is that game for you. You're going away from home, so you're getting away from the chatter and all of the local media, and you're able to go on a work trip. And it's going to be a half home game because you know half of Chicago is going to go to that game. It's a chance for you to get to 500, to get vibes right, and to handle the first quarter of a season that had adversity to start it. That had so many people on the brink to be able to bring it back, to calm things down, to allow yourself to win the games you're supposed to do the things that winning teams do, which is when given an opportunity to win a football game, to compete in a football game, you take it. And not only you take it, you run with it. And if they want to give it to you, if they want to break, you break them. And that's what they did against Dallas, and that's what they need to do against the Raiders. This is not a team that's going to blow you up, but this is a team that can beat you. This is a team themselves that wants to get right and think they can do it on you. I talked about it a few weeks back. If this feels like a Caleb Williams breakout game is desperately needed, it feels like in this game, a defensive, absolutely lockdown of a game from the front seven is what's called for. It feels like a game where Caleb goes in there, throws 2 touchdowns, 200 yards, easy day, and the defense just absolutely shuts down the Raiders offense. Pete Carroll and that offense has nothing. Geno Smith is smothered, and it's a nice, easy 2-game winning streak coming back. That is what I think is really needed. I think that would also answer a lot of questions. But for now, we answered one question. When would they get their first win of the season. It was after a 31-14 win against the Dallas Cowboys in Chicago. Let us know your thoughts. What are you feeling after now a win against the Cowboys, now 1-2, getting ready to head to Vegas to take on the Vegas Raiders? Will they now get to 500? Will they get into competing position for the NFC North? Will they be in playoff contention as the season continues? Let us know. We're here on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle, on WCPT 820 AM, HeartlandSignal.com, and on WSBC 1240 AM, Chicago. If you want even more Bears content, check out our show, Bear Era Podcast. From Bootleg Football, it is EJ Snyder. From the Irish Bear Show, it is Kieran Hall. And of course, myself, Mike Mercado, with some of the best experts and pundits and scouts and experts in the NFL world covering the Chicago Bears. Join us every single week over at the Bear Era Podcast. Check us out on YouTube at Bear Era Pod. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. The Chicago Bears beat the Dallas Cowboys 31-14. And we will see you next week after the Bears hopefully beats the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.